internet. So today I thought I would do a haul video for you, and it is a little bit different because I was very specific on the items I wanted to buy in this particular haul. I have quite a few items. I have 7 pens all up. They look so much bigger because of all the packaging, but I did want to keep the packaging on them so you could see what they're like when you purchase them. I have been completely obsessed with calligraphy the last few months now. I have been practicing. I would not consider myself very good at it, but I am practicing and I'm just finding it so much fun to do. It's so rewarding. So a few months ago I did a haul where I bought a bunch of kuretake pens. Oops. Ooh. This one, for example, where it's like flat top, kind of like a highlighter. I've just pulled this one out because this is the one I mostly use. It's my Tombow dual tip pens, and I mostly use the brush end to do a lot of my calligraphy. You would have seen this in a lot of my bullet journaling because I do use it mostly there. And I was using these ones as well. These are really great for different types of calligraphy. You will get a different style with these flat top ones than you will these ones. And I like both, to be honest, but I feel like I'm probably leaning more to the brush tip pens instead. I just feel like I get a little bit more flexibility with them and I have a little bit more creative control, if that makes sense. So I've mostly just been using my Tombow dual tip pen and the Muji brush tip pen, which I love the Muji pen because it's an actual brush. It's so good. I love it. Or I may sometimes also use my watercolor brushes for that if I want different colors. So I mostly just have these two and I really love them, but I really wanted to see what other pens were out there, so I've been kind of collecting a list of them for a month or so now, and eventually when I had a pretty decent list I decided to purchase them all in one go. I have a little notebook here so I can test each of these pens out so you can see what they're like. I'm curious as well. I've never tried any of these before. And I think that's pretty much it, so let's get straight into the video. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is this one from Pilot. It is their Pilot Futayaku double-sided brush pen. So you've got a smaller tip here and a larger tip here. Alright, let's give this, I'm going to try the wider tip first. It's really pigmented. Okay, I'm going to try the other side, which is much smaller. It's kind of like an actual fountain. It's like an actual pen. But you can still do, yeah, you can still get like thick and thin lines out of it. Cool. Let's just see. It still takes a little bit to dry. Like I can still see it. The ink is still wet on this one. And there's some bleed through, but not a ton of it. Like you can see it, but this paper's not exactly the thickest either, so that's pretty cool. Put that aside. The next one is a Pilot pen as well. It is the pocket brush pen. It's soft. I think this one comes in ranges. As you can see, it's got like a brush tip, but this is a softer brush tip and you can get harder ones. I prefer the softer ones personally. I just find them easier to use. This is what it looks like. I would have no idea that this was a Pilot pen once I took it out of the packaging because nothing here really says Pilot in English. So you've just got a tiny bit of katakana here, Pairoto, and that's like the only indication that it's from Pilot. So that's what it looks like. I'm probably just gonna keep drawing M's. I'm sorry for the lack of creativity, but it's just, for me it's easier because I can see thin and thick lines. Oh wow, okay. You guys see that? It is beautiful. And so easy to work with, and it dries really fast, like really fast. Wow, that tip is so soft. That's amazing. The bleed through is not that bad. It's a little bit more than the previous pen, and the pigmentation is a little bit deeper, like it's a bit more of a matte black. But this pen, man, wow, it's so nice to use. Alright, definitely one of my favorites so far. I definitely want to use that a lot more, but already really big fan of that pen. So I'm going to move on to the next one. This is a Pentel pen. It is the Pentel Pigment Ink Brush Pen. There is literally no English on this one, but this is the hiragana that reads Penteru. Penteru, so that's how I know it's a Pentel pen. And it just says here like pigment ink in Japanese. So I'm going to open this up. This is such a tall pen. Okay, there seems to be like a little bit of setting up to do, so I'm gonna do that right now. So the pen looks like this. It's a lot, this reminds me a lot of my Pentel brush pens, like my watercolor brushes. It really reminds me of that. And you can already tell it is quite flexible, like naturally flexible. Okay, so from what I can tell, you actually need to put the ink in. You gotta get rid of this little tab. So I'm gonna quickly try and do that. This part in here is just gonna puncture this, and then the ink should flow through. The pen is kind of like a bit of a squeezy tube, like you can actually squeeze it down. Okay, can you guys see the ink coming through now? Hopefully I don't have too much. It's coming down the ferrule. Oh, it's coming down to the bristles now as well. I'm just gonna let it naturally sink down on its own. I'm not gonna press anymore. I just want the brush to be fully saturated before I start practicing. You know what? I'm gonna leave this upside down for a little bit just so the ink can flow through. I'll move on to the next pen and I'll come back to that at the end of the video, because I don't think the remaining pens I have don't work like that. So this one is a brand I haven't heard of before. It is, the pen is called Sailor Mitsuo Aida Double Brush Pen. Has a fine and medium tip, and it is in blue. I decided to change it up a little bit instead of always getting black, even though, I don't know, black just looks a lot better in my opinion. So I think we have the thicker end here and the thinner end here. Let's give this a shot. Kind of looks like a felt tip. Okay, well, it's not a blue pen, just colored blue on the outside, but it's still black ink. It's not too bad. Kind of works really similar to the Pilot double tip pen that I was using before. Yeah, it's very, very similar. I find that the brush pen, the thicker one, I find that the thicker side actually is just a little bit easier to control than it was with the thicker end on this one. Maybe it was just a one-off thing. I just find it a little bit easier, but this does remind me, these to me are kind of like finer versions of the original Tombow brush pen that I've been using. I just find them a little bit more refined and easier to control. Like the tip is more, the tip is finer. So I actually really like these. I'm really liking this one. It is not as pigmented as the Pentel pen, unfortunately. The Pentel one out of this entire haul is actually still my favorite, but yeah, it's not as pigmented as all the others that I've tried so far. And the bleed through, I think, hardly any bleed through, which doesn't surprise me given that the pigmentation is not very deep. Okay, cool. I'm gonna move on to Tombow. So this is a different type of Tombow pen. This is one actually that I've heard so much about. So this is the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen. I feel like so many bullet journalists use this, and I, for some reason, was just sitting completely out of the loop, had no idea that this was such a popular pen. So I finally get to try it, which I'm so excited for. Yeah, it's supposed to be a soft brush pen, so you probably can get like harder versions, but as you guys know, I'm really into the soft pens. So that's what it looks like. It's not a very big brush. Let's give it a shot. Okay. I like this pen, but not as much as the brush pens. I like this pen. I think it's really good for like smaller letters when you're doing like smaller calligraphy. I find that these like big brush pens that I've been using are good, but they aren't very good at making like really tiny letters. They're better for these ones where you're writing really big. This has a little bit more like firmness to it. It didn't knock it out of the park straight away for me, but I think with a little bit more practice on the angling, I will really enjoy it. Okay, so this next pen is from a brand called Acacia. I actually own a bunch of their watercolor pens already, and they are so good, so pigmented, and great for calligraphy. I decided to pick up this brush pen, which is also in the soft range. So this is what it looks like. It's quite long. And the tip, oh wow, okay, that's quite a big tip. Really reminds me of my dual tip Tombow. So I'm just like, when I'm not sure, I like to try it a few times to kind of get my head around it. I like it. It's very pigmented. It's like this Pentel pen. It's very, very dark and pigmented, which I love. I'm not a big fan of anything that's too light. I feel like it needs to stand out. It is felt tip, so it's not a brush, and it doesn't press down very well. And honestly, when it comes to felt tips, it's not a good idea to press down too hard because it wears down the brush way faster. I'll give you a good example. This one, okay, it looks kind of good on camera. This is my Tombow, but it's actually worn down quite a bit to the point where I don't find the tip to be as fine. Okay, I feel like every time I try to explain to you guys a concept, my pens betray me because it looks pretty okay on camera, but trust me, this is worn out and it's not very precise anymore. And I think it's because I pushed too hard on it, so I wore it down a lot faster. So that's the difference to me with felt tips. By the way, everything I'm telling you guys is just my own personal observations. Nobody's told me this. I have really no idea. I could be completely wrong, but this is just my own experiences, and that's kind of what the whole channel is about. Just my journey into trying to learn how to use stationery better. But anyways, yeah, I think this one needs to be, this is very similar to the Tombow pen, so I quite like it in that sense. I love how dark and pigmented it is. As you can see, my original Tombow pen is not even as pigmented as this, which to me is a big deal. And there's significant bleed through, like none of these have actually bled through, but you can definitely see it coming through a little bit more. The second last pen before I get back to the Pentel pen is this one. It is from Copic. If you're really into drawing, then you'll probably have heard of the Copic markers at some point because they're so popular and they're available pretty much anywhere. If you're curious, there's like a huge range of them, but they basically look like these. I have like a set sitting over there. They are alcohol based, at least these ones are. So they do have that like permanent marker smell to them. And yeah, they're very pigmented and they're really great for cartoonists or people who love like drawing, like art. They're heavily used for that sort of thing. Unfortunately, they bleed through like crazy, so you need a really thick paper for that. But this is the same brand. This one is more around calligraphy, so I'm keen to see if it's anything like these markers because I am actually not a big fan of this permanent marker smell. So this is called the Copic Gasenfude Nylon Brush Pen. I don't know if you guys can see it from here, but the lid has like all these gold flecks on it. That's so cute. Actually, it's not the lid, it's the entire thing. I like that. That's so pretty. So this is what the tip looks like. It actually kind of looks like a brush to me. It looks like a brush. So let's give this a shot. Yep, it's a brush and I love it already. Even though that was a really wonky M. It's definitely a brush, so it flexes really easily. I mean, I love brush pens. They're so easy to use. I just love them. And it's super pigmented. Let's see if there's... Not really. Actually, the bleed through is less than a lot of these darker ones as well. And yet it is really pigmented. Not as pigmented as this one, but it's very dark. But I like it. I just wish that the brush pens... I wish I was better at writing smaller letters with brush pens. I feel like I always have a tendency to go really big and write huge letters in them. But I really like this brush pen. It is so cool. Alright. I am going to go back to my Pentel. It's been sitting here for a while, so hopefully the brush is fully saturated. I'm not sure if you guys can see. I must have pushed too hard and the ink has actually come right out into the ferrule, which is a little annoying, but let's just see. Oh, and it's still not very pigmented. Oh man. Am I doing something wrong? Do I need to soak this in water or something? I'm not really sure. Okay, I'm not really sure what to do, guys. I mean, the ink is definitely there. Beautiful ink. But I'm just not able to get an even coverage into the brush itself, which, yeah, you see, it just looks terrible. I'm not really sure. I can just tell you that functionality-wise, I'm not a big fan of the fact that I need to control the ink through. I'm sure some people are because it gives them more control. For me, at this point in my life, I'm really more just about pens that can ink themselves. I will say though, there's no bleed through, despite that was a lot of ink that I smeared on here. No bleed through, so that's really good. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to experiment with this. I might look up a few tutorials online and see if anybody has had any ideas on how to have it flow through. I'm sure the instructions explain it, but I can't read all the instructions. So those are all the pens I bought. I'm actually really happy with basically the majority, like the vast majority of my purchases. I can't wait to like play with them more. Right after I finish this video, I'm probably just going to jump over straight to my bullet journal and just start drawing like crazy. It's going to be so much fun. So anyways, I hope you guys found this video interesting. If you want to know how I'm doing further down the line with these pens or any other calligraphy pens I'm using, then be sure to let me know. I'm happy to do like maybe a more in-depth review video because I feel like this was more first impressions. But yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't want to miss any of my videos in the future, then be sure to subscribe. This is Celina reporting from my room. Back to you, internet.